Welcome to the Current Veterans Oral History Project.
No, I'm not quite clearly understanding you.
Welcome to the Current Veterans History Project.
Well, okay, thank you.
My name is John.
Mine is too. Also John.
John Prince, and you are?
Good. John Boydston.
Okay.
Senior.
Could you start by telling us your birth date?
I'm sorry.
Your birth date?
Your birthday.
Oh, January 10th, 1920.
Okay. What wars and what branch did you serve in?
I served in the U.S. Army Air Corps in January 2nd, 1942 to I think October 24th. I'm not sure the October date. In fact, it's probably November 24th because it's just before Thanksgiving, 1945.
In which war did you serve in?
World War II.
Okay. What was your highest rank while you were in service?
What was my wife?
Your highest rank?
Captain.
Okay. Where did you serve? In the Pacific Theater or European?
Yes, I served all over the United States and in Great Britain, in France, and Germany.
Okay. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I volunteered.
Okay. Where did you enlist? Like in a movie theater or?
I beg your pardon?
Where did you enlist? Like.
I enlisted in Mentorfield, Bakersfield, California.
Okay. Where were you living at the time?
In Bakersfield.
Why did you join?
Because the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor, and I knew I'd be in the draft, and the major out here at Mentorfield told me I could play in the band for the duration of the war.
Why did you choose the Army Air Corps?
Because I couldn't get into the Navy because of my glasses. So the Air Corps was, I liked flying better than marching, and I thought the Air Force, I could see the world.
Do you recall your first days in the service?
My first base was Mentor Field.
Your first days. Your first days in the service?
Yes, I recall the whole service pretty good.
Could you tell us the story of your first few days?
How much time you got?
We've got
All right, I'll start out. It's an interesting story. I took my trumpet out there in Mentor Field and never got it out of my case. I was there for 2 days and they sent me down to Fort MacArthur at San Pedro, California. There I learned how to wash dishes and shoot crap. And then they sent me with some others, I don't know who, to Wichita Falls, Texas at Shepherd Field, Texas. And there I learned to march and go through boot camp. And there they sent me to Will Rogers Field, California. I'm at Will Rogers Field, Oklahoma City. And there I became a clerk because I had taken typing in high school. And I was with the 325th Material Squadron, as far as I can remember. I better go on and not tell you about that. But anyway, I went from there to Officers Candidate School in Miami, Florida. And from there, I went to Officers Candidate School at Harvard University in the Harvard Business School at Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I graduated as a second lieutenant. Then I was sent to San Francisco, California, and stationed for a few days out at at Hamilton Field near San Rafael, about 30 miles north of San Francisco. And then they called me back in and sent me to be the statistical officer of the 77th Fighter Squadron, or the 4th Fighter Group, in Payne, Washington. Then I was sent, took a troop train, a caravan of trucks, to Pendleton Field, Oregon. And then I was called into San Francisco again and sent out to Hamilton Field again to help form a new fighter group, the 354th Fighter Group. And there we went to Tonopah, Nevada, at Tonopah Air Base, to get our pilots, because we only had group headquarters and some flight leaders and sergeant majors before leaving Hamilton Field. So our whole group kind of formed either on the way or when we got to Tonopah, Nevada. And we got pilots in from various schools, and I assigned each one of them to a various squadron. We had a group headquarters of about 35 people, and 3 squadrons of about 300 people each. And we went from there to Santa Rosa, California, and they flew practice flights in the P-39 airplane. We lost some fellows who had graduated from the various schools by piloting a touchy airplane and spinning in while they're in training. And then we were sent to Payne Field, Washington, to Pendleton, Oregon. And there we had our final training. And from there we went to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, and after about a week off, this was about around north New York City, they put us on a ship called the Athlone Castle, and we floated across the Atlantic, pitch black at night, with a whole armada. Our group commanded the whole ship. Our group commander was the commander of all the troops on the ship, which include fighter pilots as well as our fighter group. And then we landed in Liverpool. I think we had some problems going across the Atlantic. That's beside the point. In London, in Liverpool, they took us and we were about a week or two in a castle, but no heat. And it was freezing. I mean, we felt like we were freezing. Wasn't any frost, but it was cold, no heat. Anyway, they took us to Boxstead, which is out on the English Channel and near Colchester. And from there, we got in our planes. And as my cap will show, we were the Pioneer Mustang Group, the first Mustang group in the European theater to get the Mustang. And that group shot down 701 planes in head-to-head combat. A very famous group. I can take no credit except giving them service, assigning them to the squadron, and getting replacements when some were shot down or whatever the deal was. also the armors and the various helpers for the airplane. And after Bachstead, we were sent to southern England, getting ready for the invasion, and down in Maidstone. And from there, we were the first fighter group on the continent after D-Day. We were at Station A2 in Normandy. We were really about 20 miles, 30 miles from Normandy. We were the first fighter group on the continent. And from there we went to Brittany, France, and at that time we shot down our 500th airplane, had a great celebration, and I was promoted to captain. I had been changed from a statistical officer to a special service officer. And because, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, there's a reason for all that. And then we went from there to a base by the Marne River in France. Went through Paris on the Marne River. And there the river overflowed, and we went north to the edge of Germany at a station between Nancy and Metz, France, called Rosiers, R-O-S-I-E-R-S. And there, we were there when the Battle of the Bulge was on, and we were told they're about to break through, and we had no defense except pistols and carbines. But anyway, they didn't break through. Our army held up. We won the Battle of the Bulge. From there, we went to Frankfurt, Germany, and then down to Ansbach, Germany, to the most decorated fighter base in Germany, which was von Richthofen's base, who was the leading ace in World War I for Germany. And we had a very good base there. And from there, we won the war. That's when victory in Europe went over. We felt the war was over when we won the war. Anyway, from there, we went to Herzogenaurach. That's near Nuremberg and Fürth. Fürth is spelled F-I-R-T-H. And we enjoyed a good after the war trip. And from there, I went to the debarkation in France, back to United States, and flew home in command of about 14 Californians who were sent various places. When we got home, I never saw any of them again. Up to Beale Field, California, up by Sacramento. And from there, I was sitting there, and a guy came in shouting, and Captain Boydson, Captain Boydson. I said, yeah, I'm Captain Boydson. He said, you've just been promoted to major. I said, I have? Good. He said, you can accept promotion now, and you'll be deactivated, or you can go take your terminal leave, still as captain, and be promoted in February. I said, well, what's the difference? Your choice. I said, well, I'll stay as captain. I get paid. Don't get paid for major if I get out now, right? I said, that's right. So I went in, was transferred into the reserve, and was to be promoted captain in February. Well, that major, it never came. So I went up to San Francisco. Hamilton Field was still operating there then. It's not now. And asked them for why I didn't get my majority. And they said, because you were court-martial. We gave it to one of our guys. and I didn't debate it, but I was court-martialed over in Germany, but I was held innocent. And that was getting troops to carry supplies, because I was also put in charge of the post exchange and all the ball games at the theater and all that. And it didn't work out. And I asked, I heard you could get trucks. People were turning in trucks. And offered a guy a bottle of whiskey for a truck. He refused, but he told his commanding officer, and he turned me in and had a general court-martial, but I was declared innocent. So that is kind of my story there. And that's, I wound up in Bakersfield, where I was when I went in. Sold real estate.
Okay.
With my father.
Do you remember if there was very many casualties in your unit?
Pardon?
Were there very many casualties in your unit?
Were there many casualties in your unit?
Cuts?
Casualties. Deaths.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we shot down 701 planes, and I should get the total. I think we lost about 300. We lost a lot of good friends. It's like, you're my friend, see you today, you don't see me tomorrow, never will again. It was common, the very first flight we had in our group, we lost a major, head of one of our squadrons, and his wingman, flying over Germany, didn't meet any combat. Flying back, they ran out of gas and sunk in the English Channel. And that put a quietus over us. About a flight or two later, our group ran into a group of juries, and we came home and the pilots reported, we lost 2 men and killed 14. And from then on, our group was not guys worrying about going out. We remember how many are going to get tomorrow. That was their attitude. Our guys got so built up, and they're like a championship football team. And we were really a very enthusiastic and happy group. A couple of our guys on leave, enlisted men, got dinged by the military police one time for not being a little out of uniform. Didn't have their tie tied or something. Commanding officer called him in and he said, look, don't worry about that. You're not going to be punished. You just get these planes in the top shape they can be so we can kill all those juries. That's the kind of outfit we had. We had a real sporting outfit. What else?
How did you stay in touch with your family?
How did you stay in touch with your family?
With my family? My mother wrote to me and she sent me cookies, but my roommates stole the cookies before I get to them. So. And I would get a letter off to them now and then. I'm ashamed in a way I didn't write more, but you couldn't tell very much. I followed the rules in that respect particularly. I did not write letters and tell anything that would get our group in trouble. I wore my dog tags in case we were captured. What's the next question?
What was the food like?
What?
What was the food like?
The food was not bad. In England, I know I was very jealous because pilots who I outranked got eggs for breakfast, and all I get was pancakes, no breaks, or sea rations. Sea rations is just kind of a meal deal.
Mm-hmm.
The food was good after the war. In fact, after the war at Urskanaga, on our base there, I had my own little house and a driver and a German car. Well, I think it was yeah, it was a France car. And as I say, we were all taken care of after the war. And one of my roommates was the club officer, so he had access to any liquid refreshments we needed. And my other roommate I put in my house with me was a squadron adjutant who also was the head of all the food in his squadron, and we had plenty of good meat to eat and other good food.
Remember, ask him. What's his name?
John.
John. Downstairs, you talked about the point system.
Yes.
Can you explain that and how? Do you remember how that worked?
Okay. I think the reason I got more points was because I was, first of all, an enlisted man before I was an officer. Our group was made up mostly of officers, and I probably entered the service before most of the pilots. And because I entered in January, a lot of them entered maybe March or April or something like that. Also, I departed with the honorable, what do they call it, an honorable discharge anyway, from the Army, I guess it was. I had to be discharged from the Army to go into the Air Corps itself. And yeah, I guess we were just in training to begin with. So one other fellow, I don't know his background, a communication officer of the 356 Fighter Squadron. We were in the club, officers club one night, and he poured, scotch was only 10 cents a shot. So he wasn't really very big in this. He poured a glass of scotch in my pocket. I said, "What'd you do that for, Rex?" He says, "I want to get your attention." He says, "You and I got the points. We can go home." I said, "We have?" I hadn't even thought about points. "Yeah, we got more points than anybody." So I said, "Well, I'm going home." And he said, he's going home. And I lost a lot of stuff on the way home that I had collected, guns and so forth. I got some of them home, but I think the fellows on the way home inspected and decided they needed more than I did. Anyway, as I told you, maybe I didn't tell you, I was told if I would stay 60 days that I could be promoted to a lieutenant colonel, because the group was splitting up. They were sending some of our pilots to the Japanese area, and others were there to just take care of the base. We were folding it up. So I didn't want to stay. I gave myself a 10-day pass to Paris and wrote my own orders and took off rather than staying there and being promoted to lieutenant colonel. Now, whether they told me the truth or not, I don't know. I didn't test them. But the group headquarters, the adjutant told me. So that was the deal. But I said, no, I want to get home as soon as I can. Besides, there was winter coming on. It's cold over there in the winter in Germany. It's getting cold there. Herzogenaurach. Next question.
Do you remember where you were when the war ended?
Yes, told you that. I'm in Ansbach, German,
Right.
at the Richthofen Air Base. It's got another name, but now I've been back there since the war, and I think that there's another type of German army on that base now. But they were nice to us. I've been back to several reunions of my fighter group. And one of them, we went back to Europe. In fact, at least two of them went back to Europe.
Okay.
Saw our old bases. And we were welcomed. Really, the Germans really appreciated us. I mean, not the Germans. Excuse me. The English really appreciated us. More so than the France.
Did you continue your education after you joined the military?
Did you continue your education after the military?
Yes, somewhat. Somewhat. In fact, I was invited to go back to Washington, D.C. Or to Harvard. I'm not sure which one, by a Harvard professor who was trying to form a group with the statistical officers who graduated from Harvard Business School during the war and be a group. But I was busy selling real estate. I didn't have time to go back there. And so I dropped that. I also, though, did become a mortgage banker, or mortgage broker, excuse me. And I attended a class in Stanford University. It wasn't a military class. And I also joined the reserves out here, but they didn't do anything. And when I couldn't get my majority promotion, I departed from the Air Corps Reserve. I thought they did me wrong. Because I didn't ask for being promoted. They came by and told me I was going to be, then took it away.
Has your time in the service influenced your thoughts on anything?
Has your time in the service influenced your thoughts on virtually anything?
Oh, a lot. It's hard to describe, but as I say, I was very fortunate to be associated with a group of fine young men, many who would have been fine leaders when they got home, and they were killed. And I'm talking about pilots. I don't think we lost any of our enlisted men, except it's a possibility, I don't remember. We were a group that went, we were pretty well protected. We were protected by a whole flotilla of about 20 warships when we went across the ocean. We were a privileged group from the very beginning, once we formed it, because our commanding officer, a colonel at the end, Colonel Martin, he saw to it our pilots, if they flew for 52 minutes or 55, they put down 52 minutes or 55. They didn't put down an hour. Our group was probably the most precisely trained group that went over there. And we took, as another thing, a very minor thing, I liked to hunt a bit while I was a kid, when I was older, growing up. Before we went over, they had all of us officers, I don't know if they had enlisted men too, but all of us officers take a brief training course in gunnery. And I got to be expert in the 45, expert in the carbine, and I don't know which is the highest, and a sharpshooter in a machine gun. And one of our guys said, the Germans are going to be scared from us when we get all our reports of our deals with guns. Well, we never fought on the ground at all. Next question.
Have you joined any veterans organizations?
Have you joined any veterans organizations?
No, I am not.
Okay.
And a funny thing is, I don't remember being asked to join. If one of them would have come to me, and I know several are there, several guys in American Legion. I don't know of any in the Veterans of Foreign Wars, but they should be. But they send letters out and everything, but no personal people in town have asked me to join a veterans organization. And I've got some good friends, some still alive, that belong. But that's their problem. I'm in about 20 or 30 different organizations that I help, like Bakersfield College, University of California, Berkeley, alumni, the Kiwanis Club, the Christian Businessmen's Club, what all am I in? I'm in all kinds of deals. So if I'd been invited, I'd probably join, but I didn't. Another reason why I didn't join is that when I was a boy, I lived in Brawley, California, and the American Legion was just known, probably because my mother was a little prejudiced, for their wild parties. And so I thought, I don't have time for a bunch of wild parties, so why go and put myself doing extra work when I don't have time? And I've done a lot of church work in different churches.
Well, is there anything else you would like to add to the interview?
What?
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Any experiences that stand out in your mind?
Well, I can't think on the top of my head. You know, I'm old and crumbling like an old building. There are a lot of things come up, remembrances. I remember